As somebody that has reviewed some pretty awful TV shows in recent years, it's pretty hard to surprise me at this point, especially when it comes to modern-day Star Trek, but somehow, Starfleet Academy keeps doing just that. While it was always clear that under the leadership of Star Trek producer Alex Kurtzman, this show was always going to be a disaster, Starfleet Academy still manages to be the worst thing he's ever made, and that's really saying something. In a series that has already made a mockery of Starfleet, Klingons, Vulcans, holograms, and even Benjamin Sisko, I really didn't think it could get much worse, yet Episode 7 of Starfleet Academy has somehow managed to pull it off, giving us yet another Star Trek franchise low again. Now, I would call it cheap fanfiction, but in order to qualify for that description, this show would have to be written by actual fans, and I suspect that most people that are working on it have never even watched Star Trek before or actively dislike it. But even more bizarre, the people writing Starfleet Academy don't just ignore the 6 decades of franchise lore that came before them, they don't even seem to remember their own new and stupid lore that they've created themselves from episode to episode. If you recall, episode 6 of this terrible show tried to make it seem like serious things were happening, when, due to a training exercise gone wrong, a Starfleet officer and a cadet ended up losing their lives. You'd think that after an episode like that, there would be an immediate investigation looking into that incident. You'd think that the admiral and the captain in charge of this academy would be thoroughly scrutinized, and that perhaps in the aftermath of that incident, the cadets' mood at this academy would be more somber and serious. Unfortunately, though, this is Kurtzman Trek, where any kind of storytelling logic just goes right out the airlock. Now, in this video, I will go over the episode with you, as I always do, but before we begin, if you've been enjoying my videos, or you're new to my channel and haven't yet subscribed, please make sure to do that now, as it would really help support an independent reviewer like myself.
Do it.
Episode 7 starts off by letting us know that the cadets are about to go on a 4-day spring break for something that they call All Worlds. Now, All Worlds is not a holiday that currently exists within Star Trek lore, so it's something new, which is odd because with all of their use of cheap member berries, this was really a place where they could have used an existing holiday like First Contact Day, or the day that the Federation was formed. I suppose that in order to know about those days, the writers would have had to have used Google, and we all know that they're too lazy to do that, so All Worlds it is. Next, we see Caleb, who's sitting around trying to record a voice message for his girlfriend Betazoid Girl. Now, if you recall, in something of a cliffhanger, Episode 6 left her in a coma and in critical condition, but now we're told that she woke up off screen and is currently recovering. So the only stupid thing these writers have actually set up, they couldn't even pay off in an acceptable way, but let's not dwell on that. Caleb starts to record his message by saying that the events of Episode 6 really had a deep impact on him. Now, if this show wasn't written by toddlers, you'd think they'd address the fact that Paul Giamatti first attacked Starfleet Academy after Caleb hijacked the ship's computer and sent out a message. Without that message, it isn't likely that Starfleet Academy would have ever been on Giamatti's radar, which means that without Caleb's initial contact, Giamatti also wouldn't have attacked Starfleet Academy again in Episode 6, and by extension, without Caleb, both Lieutenant Commander Tomov and Discount Spock would likely still be alive. And you'd think that Caleb contributing to 2 people's death would make him at least a bit guilty, especially when one sacrificed his life to save his, but nope. He just talks about his feelings for Betazoid Girl again. And all of this is happening while he's remembering his lengthy and annoying love scene with her from the previous episode. But then he realizes that he's too scared and too timid to send his girlfriend a voice note, so he deletes the message without sending it, because that's what men act like on Kurtzman Trek for some reason. And if you were hoping to see more of Tig Notaro, well, you're in luck, because she's right here again, transporting students to their vacation destinations. And I have to say, she must have the best agent in Hollywood, because I really have no explanation as to how or why she's getting so much screen time. But never mind that now. As TikTok Girl and Hologram Girl are in line to be transported, we learn that Hologram Girl, who has another ridiculous hairdo, keeps glitching ever since she was attacked and injured in the previous episode. The thing is, though, she's not a real person. She can't get injured, and there's no reason for her to glitch. And you know, there have been holograms within Star Trek lore before, like the Doctor from Voyager, who even appears on this stupid show, and he had a mobile emitter, so let's say if that was damaged, he could be damaged as well. But that's not what happened with Hologram Girl, whose characteristics and backstory just keep randomly changing from episode to episode without any type of consistency. I also don't understand why Hologram Girl and TikTok Girl act and talk like 2026 Gen Z weirdos when they're supposed to be living 1,000 years in the future, but I guess let's not focus on that either. Hologram Girl says that she's going to a special engineering spa where they're going to patch her glitch or something, and then they hug because they're besties and Hologram Girl is transported out. But if she's a hologram, how can she even be transported at all? Yeah, don't think about it. Holly Hunter is in a chipper mood, probably because she contributed to a cadet's death and nobody is even questioning her about it. She then walks up to TikTok Girl and tells her that she's the best, and she performed so well in the crisis that happened in the previous episode that she needs to be fast-tracked to becoming a captain. And all of this is super strange for a number of reasons. First of all TikTok Girl did was find a cloaked chip which ended up being meaningless because a cadet still lost his life. In addition, it was TikTok Girl that saw Caleb sending out the message that caused Paul Giamatti to show up in episode 1 of this awful show, which eventually led to Giamatti's return in episode 6, and by not reporting Caleb when she witnessed his hacking, she not only endangered the lives of everybody at Starfleet Academy in episode 1 during Paul Giamatti's first attack, by extension, she also bears at least some responsibility for Giamatti's second attack, which led to the deaths of a Starfleet officer and a cadet. But on this show, there's no consequences for any character whatsoever, so obviously nobody will ever mention this. Holly Hunter tells TikTok Girl that her Admiral father is going to be very proud of her and that she plans to forward her entire application to the Starfleet Captain Committee, even though it's really all a formality at this point because she's the best. Again! And although TikTok Girl is uneasy upon hearing the news, Tig Notaro still transports her to Mumbai or something. Meanwhile, Random Douche encounters Sensitive Klingon wearing a skirt. Again! Because that's what Klingons do now. They wear skirts and they're fond of dudes for some reason. Sensitive Klingon tells Random Douche that he's going to Ibiza with his love interest, who's still sad about the death of Discount Spock in the previous episode. And when Sensitive Klingon mentions Discount Spock, who sacrificed his life to save others, Random Douche is like, yep, that Discount Spock guy sure was a jolly good fellow. And then they just move on like they were talking about the weather or something. And needless to say, throughout the episode until now, all the music is like this cheesy, annoying crap that you'd hear in a commercial for laundry detergent. In any case, it seems like Random Douche isn't so excited about Sensitive Klingon spending time with his love interest, creating something of a love triangle between them, because this is, of course, Kurtzman Trek, and this is the type of stuff that Alex Kurtzman seems to be into. Allegedly. Since Caleb doesn't have a real family, Holly Hunter is sending him to Senegal to be hosted by a local family. And what does Caleb do? He complains because Holly Hunter didn't ask Paul Giamatti about his mother in episode 6 during a hostage situation, and also because Holly Hunter isn't doing enough to find his mother in general. Again! And of course, this part is just infuriating. Innocent people are literally dead now because of this jerk and his selfish behavior, and all of that is after this school was an opportunity given to him to avoid jail time. In what reality does somebody like this get to talk down to his captain like she was his maid? And yes, I know that Holly Hunter is a mentally challenged captain, but that still doesn't excuse Caleb's behavior either. This is supposed to be a serious establishment with real hierarchy. They are making this a joke. Again. In any case, Holly Hunter first concedes and tells Caleb that he can spend his vacation at Starfleet Academy, and then she asked him what happened to Betazoid Girl, although you'd think that as captain and chancellor, she'd be in the know. Caleb says that he heard Betazoid Girl is recovering and out of a coma after speaking with her brother, but when he talks about Betazoid Girl, he becomes all sensitive like a little girl. Again! You'd think that the show's only seemingly straight dude would at least occasionally act like a man, but this show could never let that happen for some reason. Next, Random Douche walks around and he finds a pebble on the floor, but it turns out that this special pebble is from his home planet, and the reason it's here is because there's people that want to kidnap him. Why would they need to throw a pebble in order to kidnap him? Yeah, don't think about it. Sensitive Klingon sees Random Douche being abducted, but initially he doesn't do anything because I suppose he doesn't want his skirt to get wrinkled. But when he sees Random Douche being dragged into some type of portal, he decides to go after him into the portal. It turns out though that this abduction abduction was actually just part of a ritual to bring Random Douche to a secret wedding, but since Sensitive Klingon doesn't realize that, he tells the people that abducted Random Douche that today is a good day to die, suggesting that he's ready for combat. And that really annoys me. You can't be both moist and soft, wearing skirts every episode, and then suddenly act like you're a more traditional, tough and manly Klingon when the screenplay needs that. It's just poor and pathetic writing, again. Anyhow, Random Douche tells his wedding captors that Sensitive Klingon is his best man, but Sensitive Klingon is upset because instead of being in Ibiza with his love interest, he's stuck on some planet with Random Douche. Meanwhile, Caleb is shirtless on the starship getting a tan in a scene that feels completely out of place here. Yes, there have been shirtless people on Star Trek in the past, like on Enterprise, but even then, there would at least be some type of pretense for why it was happening within the story. This scene feels like it's here for the sake of being here, and it's not like Caleb is here with an appealing woman next to him or anything, because you'll never see an appealing woman on this show walking around in a bikini or anything. Anyway, TikTok Girl suddenly shows up to interrupt Caleb. While she had initially been transported to her vacation, she hacked her way back to Starfleet Academy because she wanted to catch up on her studying. Caleb can appreciate this because, as you know, he's something of a hacker himself. TikTok Girl tells Caleb that he has body odor and then challenges him to play a game called Toxic or Non-Toxic with her. You'd think that with a name like that it would involve perhaps Caleb hiding his salami somewhere, but this is Kurtzman Trek, so prepare for something way, way dumber than that. Next, back at Random Douche's secret wedding, he explains to Sensitive Klingon that the way they were able to transport here was because his people can create portable wormholes, which makes absolutely no sense and is just lore-breaking garbage, much like Ryan Johnson's Holdo maneuver in The Last Jedi. Because if people can just keep wormholes in their pockets, why would they never use it aside from abducting somebody for a secret wedding? Especially after The Burn, where they couldn't use warp travel anymore because this technology would come in really handy, right? Yeah, don't think about it. Now that Sensitive Klingon realizes that Random Douche isn't in any kind of real danger, he wants to go back to his love interest in Ibiza, but Random Douche convinces him that he really needs him to be his best man. He also explains that he was promised to his girlfriend as a child, and even though he was only supposed to marry her after completing Starfleet Academy, since she's his best friend and he loves her, he has to be there for her now. And then Random Douche's secret bride suddenly appears along with her, bridesmaid? And we learn that once Random Douche marries her, he will be considered royalty. Back at Starfleet Academy, Caleb and TikTok Girl are now at the lab, essentially playing a game of science lab roulette, where they shove their hands into secret canisters, some of which could physically harm them. Kind of like those stupid TikTok challenges that you see today, which I assume is the crowd this series is trying to appeal to, unsuccessfully. While he's dipping his hand in a toxic chemical, TikTok Girl finds a moment to ask Caleb about his feelings for Betazoid Girl. Again. And then he acts like a little girl. Again. And since the toxic chemical Caleb touched gives him Pinocchio ears, TikTok Girl quickly injects him with the antidote. Then it turns out that they let a slug escape, and that slug has warp capabilities. Of course, none of this makes any sense because I think a slug that could travel at warp speed would get stuck on a glass, but let's not worry about that now. Meanwhile, Random Douche tells his secret bride that he's surprised that they're getting married now because their original plan was to have him complete Starfleet Academy first. But his secret bride tells him that the plan has changed because her mom wasn't feeling well or something, and since leading the planet as royalty is a two-person job, they would have to replace her parents as husband and wife leaders much sooner than they had initially agreed upon. Secret bride tells Random Douche that she's not trying to pressure him or anything, and that he has about 5 seconds to decide if he's going to be there for his people and his planet when they need him, or not. So he obviously agrees, but then he makes a strange face suggesting that he either wants to return to Starfleet, he has feelings for Sensitive Klingon, or both. Look, I tell you this every time. Don't blame the messenger here. You clicked on this video because you wanted to know what was in this episode, and that's exactly what I'm delivering. Back in the lab, Caleb and TikTok Girl are still chasing the warp-capable Slug, but just as they freeze him, Tig Notaro shows up again. But since she's having a phone call lover's quarrel with her spouse, Lieutenant Commander Thought, while also playing with her toe, she doesn't realize that there's a Slug right above her head dropping some toxic chemicals on her. But by using her sharpshooting skills, TikTok Girl freezes the toxic material before it touches Tig Notaro, and then she leaves. Caleb then tells TikTok Girl that she's the best because he could never make a shot like that, and then it almost seems like Caleb and TikTok Girl are having a little moment of their own, perhaps hinting at another love triangle developing between him, her, and Betazoid Girl, because that's what we all really wanted on Star Trek, right? Another love triangle. Random Douche tells Sensitive Klingon that it's important that he give a best man speech at his wedding, but Sensitive Klingon isn't happy because he thinks that Random Douche should stay at Starfleet Academy. Random Douche tells Sensitive Klingon that he wants his family, people, and Secret Bride to be proud of him for once, so he will go through with a wedding. Caleb then reveals to TikTok Girl that he was scared to talk to Betazoid Girl because in the previous episode, he thought that he was inside of her, but it turned out that she was inside of him. So that's the reason why he didn't actually contact her after she was already out of her coma. But this is really stupid even for this embarrassing show, because in the previous episode, it was already established that Caleb overcame this fear when Betazoid Girl connected with his mind on the ship. So the writers of this show are so incompetent that they're now just ignoring their own writing from the previous episode and pretending that a problem that has already been resolved has actually never been resolved. And regardless, what is this nonsense? I mean, it's fine to have some relationships on Star Trek, but this is now just a daytime soap opera that's very poorly written. TikTok Girl then tells Caleb that she needs his help hacking into the bridge so that she can sit in Holly Hunter's captain's chair. Initially, Caleb refuses because they could get into trouble, but TikTok Girl then explains that her whole life, her admiral father would let her sit in his captain's chair, but now she has to sit in her own captain's chair. So Caleb changes his mind and agrees to help her. But if Holly Hunter's captain's chair also doesn't belong to TikTok Girl, wouldn't this just be another case of her sitting in somebody else's captain's chair? Yeah, don't think about it. Meanwhile, Sensitive Klingon decides to go along with being best man at Random Douche's wedding, and nothing says best man more than a Klingon wearing a fancy dress. But then Sensitive Klingon gets cold, so Random Douche puts his jacket on him as they embrace and share a tender moment. Things then become confrontational, as Sensitive Klingon thinks Random Douche should stay at Starfleet Academy, and Random Douche tells him that he won't abandon his people and family the way Sensitive Klingon has abandoned his. This causes Sensitive Klingon to storm off and say that he's going to find his own way back to Earth. Back at Starfleet Academy, Caleb manages to overcome the bridge's tight security because he is, of course, the greatest hacker of all time. And TikTok Girl gets to finally sit in her own captain's chair that's not really her own captain's chair, and as she distracts Caleb, she actually creates a top-secret programmable key to access all the ship's data, which was her real plan all along. But Caleb catches TikTok Girl in the act, so she reveals to him that her entire future at the Academy as a cadet and her future as a captain rests on her accessing her application because there's a problem with it that she has to fix. Caleb is shocked to learn that TikTok Girl's application isn't above board because after all, she's the best! Again! And just as they're arguing about this, Tig Notaro randomly shows up again and tells them that they're both in deep shit, which is the type of language we've been getting in pretty much every scene of this dumb show. Meanwhile, Random Douche is now at his wedding where he has just been married. Everybody is waiting to hear the best man's speech, and just as it looks like Random Douche is about to explain Sensitive Klingon's absent, Sensitive Klingon shows up at the last minute wearing his fanciest dress. Again! Then he gives a heartfelt speech about how great Random Douche is at Starfleet Academy and just how cocky he is at times. And of course, Sensitive Klingon loves cocky guys because, as you know, this is Kurtzman Trek. But as the Secret Bride hears Sensitive Klingon's speech, she seems to have some type of epiphany. Now, in the hands of real writers with actual writing skills, this could have been a scenario where Secret Bride tells Random Douche that after hearing about his work at Starfleet Academy, she wants him to finish his studies there, and she will somehow hold the fort down until he returns in a few years. But since this show is written by activist hacks, or better yet, hacktivists, they use this as an opportunity to push more of their usual seventh wave feminist propaganda. For starters, Secret Bride berates Random Douche because she says that their entire marriage was based on a lie, so they should have it annulled. That he wanted to be at Starfleet Academy, but he only married her because he felt a sense of duty to her and to his people. And this is complete and utter bullshit. She's the one that abducted him during his studies at Starfleet Academy. They had an initial plan and schedule, which he had intended to honor, but then she changed the plan and told him that he needed to make compromises. So he agreed to a request and then married her. Basically, he didn't do anything wrong at all. It's her that was acting selfish, yet somehow the writers are presenting her as the victim here for some reason. And the real kicker here is that not only does she tell Random Douche that he's free to go back to Starfleet Academy, she tells him that he doesn't have to worry about this planet anymore because she's going to rule it by herself, making her the first woman to ever rule this planet with no help from no man. And then everybody stares at Random Douche in disappointment, so he and Sensitive Klingon share a tender embrace again and leave. Meanwhile, at Starfleet Academy, Holly Hunter is shocked to learn that TikTok Girl used Caleb to break into the bridge so that she could modify her applications because obviously she's the best at everything. And I hope you're sitting down for this because this is about to get really, really, really dumb. Again. You see, TikTok Girl's application was pretty much perfect in every way, aside from one issue. Her references had initially stated that while TikTok Girl was indeed the best, she didn't always believe she was the best, even though she was, and they were worried about that. And I promise you, I'm not making this up. This is actually the reason why she revised her references initially and then wanted to revise them again. But if TikTok Girl had already deleted the sentence about her not believing she was the best, what exactly would she have done if she gained access to those references once again if she was looking to be fast-tracked to captain? Yeah, don't think about that either. Holly Hunter decides to give both Caleb and TikTok Girl 200 hours of community service, which is odd because she recently gave Caleb an additional 200 hours after he hacked into the ship's computer, so now he has 400 hours of community service, which he never seems to do because the writers of the show can't even keep track of their own narrative. Again. After their return to Starfleet Academy, Random Douche thanks Sensitive Klingon for being there for him, and just as they are gazing into each other's eyes, Sensitive Klingon's love interest shows up and kisses Sensitive Klingon because that's what Star Trek has been reduced to these days. A Klingon wearing a skirt in a love triangle with two other dudes. Caleb and TikTok Girl then mop the floor using a Swiffer that they bought at Walmart. But if this is happening 1,000 years in the future, why are they using current-day Swiffers to mop the floor? Yeah, don't think about that either. TikTok Girl tells Caleb that he should overcome his fear of sending his girlfriend a voice note, so he records a message talking about his feelings again, and this time he sends it to her. Then all the cadets gather to watch a meteor shower, and for some reason it looks like all the meteors are going to crash into the Earth and destroy them, but nobody seems worried about it. Honestly though, this is probably the least of the show's concerns right now, as it has delivered an episode so bad that it doesn't even qualify as a legitimate teen drama, let alone anything Star Trek related. Many people, myself included, have been criticizing this show for trying to be 90210, Dawson's Creek, or even Gossip Girl in space, but the truth is, whether you like those shows or not, for whatever they were supposed to be, they were actually much more well written than Starfleet Academy, which should be a show that ends careers, although we all know that it won't for some reason. But if you want to support me after I've suffered through another episode of this ongoing disaster, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it would really mean a lot to me. Also, if you want to check out my reviews for previous episodes, I've left a link within the description of this video where you can find them. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day!
I'm such an awesome guy. I make so